Take it away.
Thank you very much, Rabbi. Welcome, everybody. We're delighted to host this evening's SBH Zoom virtual Shabbat get-together. Thanks to Rabbi and Sharona, Hazan, Frank, and Rena, Dr. Larry, and Sharon for previously inviting us all into their homes. This is an idea that's still in formation, and we'd appreciate your comments and suggestions on how we can create a more enjoyable and meaningful experience for all who attend. Like the real Shabbat table, we hope to engage everyone around the table, as much or as little as you'd like, old or young, more or less knowledgeable, more or less experienced. Our theme for tonight is merging this and that, and then and now. This and that. The Jewish people, Am Yisrael, aspire to unity and being one nation, with the understanding that this unity is best expressed in many ways. The Jewish people is made up of many Shvatim. Each tradition expression of Judaism is an important part of the whole. And for our family, this means Levantine Ladino-speaking Sephardic and Eastern European Yiddish-speaking Ashkenazic modes of expression. Then and now. Our connectivity is across time as well, as we live in the 20th and 21st century. Based on and informed by previous generations, we are transmitting our heritage to future generations, midor ledor. Specifically, we're bridging between grandparents and parents from the old country, the Kirdad, Rhodes, Poland, and White Russia, to 21st century children and grandchildren in America and the real old country, Israel. So we get to span about 100 years, 3 continents, and primarily 2 different expressions of Judaism. There's really 4, because I can guarantee you that the Kirdalis and the Rodezlis and the Litvaks and the Galicianas will fight very hard to maintain their own identity, as we know. Tonight, we want to share a bit of how we've done this at our Shabbat table in our food, music, and customs. And we'd love to hear from you all, your challenges, and how you make it work. So Jeannie, why don't you share your perspective about how we've incorporated this and that, and then and now into our family's Shabbat.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome. As many of you know, and some of you don't know, I was Ashkenazic at birth. And my mother's family were Galicianers. My Zeta was a very from Biana Chassid, and my father's family were Litvaks. And my Zeta on my father's side was a Chazan Shochet Moel by profession. I didn't know there was such a thing as Sephardim until my sister went to Stern and met Jeannie Maimon. Anyway, I knew about Nusach Sfard because my Zeta on my mother's side davened Nusach Sfard. So, and when Al and I decided that we would like to get married, I decided that I better come to Seattle to see what it was about. And so in the summer of 1963, I spent my summer in Seattle, and I found out about a lot of Sephardim. And I met the family, which was a very big family, and they graciously took me in. So after we got married, or before we got married, actually, I decided that we were going to have one thing going on in our household, that I was going to do whatever my husband's family did, or my husband did. And we weren't going to have this business of, well, my mother did this, and so I do that, and my father did that, and somebody else does that. So basically, in our house, I would say 99% of the traditions are traditions of the Maimon and Sharon families.
So we do have, within that context and framework, Baruch Hashem, there has been a lot of understanding and knowledge and taking and absorbing the Ashkenazic and particular family history of the Yablocks and the Whitemans. So Jeannie, next thing to talk about, when we talk about incorporating this on our Shabbat table, people's minds go to food. Now, while I do my best to do my job in the food department, that is of consumer, you're better suited to take us through some of the culinary considerations when putting our meals together.
All right. So when I talk about food, I tell people we eat what's good. What we don't like, we don't eat, but what we do like, we do eat. So on Friday night, we often have kugel, potato kugel or lakshan kugel. We have chopped liver sometimes, and we have tzimmes and some kind of meat, obviously. And sometimes we have red fish, and sometimes we have white fish. And so goes Friday night. On Shabbat, we usually have milchik or dairy every Shabbat. And actually, even on the holidays in the daytime, we have dairy meals. I do make borekas, which I learned from my mother-in-law. And I make bulemas, which I learned in Call. And I make yaprakas, and I make prasa, and I make all those good things that take a long time to make.
Tell them how you learned to make red fish.
Oh, so when Al and I got married, we lived in New York. And I was interested in learning how to make fish con tomat. So Esther, my sister-in-law, was a little bit younger at that time. And she said, well, you take some oil and you go plop, plop, plop in the pan. And then you add the fish, and then you add the tomato sauce. And so eventually I learned how to make fish con tomat. I actually learned also from other women in the community, older women who are not with us anymore, but we lived next door to Leo and Lisa Azos, and she taught me how to make bimbrio. So I luckily have a quince tree, and I make bimbrio every year. Mrs. Benaroya, Alel Shalom, taught me how to make kurabier. My mother-in-law, Alel Shalom, taught me how to make panizikos and burekas and boyos and many other things as well. So that's about the food.
And so we see that the food is important, and we love it. And at the same time, how Jeannie described it, she's also remembering who she learned from. And I'm sure people's cookbooks have so-and-so, such and such a person's recipe. If now would be the time and opportunity, if anybody would like to share either in general the challenges you have of merger at your Shabbat table, and in general, and also specifically with regards to food in any way, shape, or form. Don't all start at once. You can unmute yourself and share some thoughts if you wish.
Well, I'll say something.
Yeah.
So my story is kind of similar to Jeannie, Ashkenazic, married into big, huge Sephardic Sharon family, right? And I was very young. I had never cooked before in my life. And my Bible was the ladies' cookbook, the original blue one. Can you imagine? It was.
I use it every day.
We still have it.
Yeah. So I think the first thing I made was yapraks, and it was a learning experience because those recipes were not totally accurate. But then I just started doing some. My mother-in-law taught me how to put panizikos, the Sharon way, and borekas, and it took me a long time to do bulemas, but I started at the synagogue, just like you, with helping the ladies. When I got married in 1972, I was allowed to wash the spinach back then.
I
worked my way up 48 years later. Anyway, so my family, my kids, their favorite thing is anything with spinach and cheese. Dough, spinach, cheese, that's their last meal. That will be their last meal, will be a bulema. And my boys have learned how to do it themselves. Even when Seth went off to college in New York, he improvised, he learned how to make it all. And anyway, so food is really what binds us all together for sure. And memories, and exactly what you were saying. the people who taught me how to make the certain things, and you were in there, Jeannie. I mean,
Yeah, well,
a master man. Anyway, I'm
that's
I
great.
agree
Sharon.
with you 100%.
Yes,
Thank
absolutely.
you so much. Anybody else have a story?
I have a story. I'm the glub lady. But a few years later, Eugene and I had been married for a couple years, and then we were going to move down to Northern California. And my mother was teaching me how to make panazicos. And, you know, no mixers or dough hooks or anything in those days. And she had me, and I still have the index card where I wrote everything down. And she said, okay, Esther, feel the dough. It should feel like this. And if it doesn't, put a little more oil, whatever. I go down to California, and if I could have gotten my hand out of the sticky dough to call her to say what happens if it doesn't feel like this. But she was a very good teacher, a very no pun intended, hands-on teacher, and a great teacher.
Yes.
I still have a recipe for prasa that she sent me, and she drew a picture of the prasa, and she showed me where to cut it. You know, how much green to cut off and how much roots to leave. So, you know, it brings back a lot of good memories.
Thank you. Anybody else want to say anything?
Well, I think I can relate to the Sharon and Jeannie group. I'm Ashkenazic.
She's an AFB, Ashkenazic from birth.
There you go. And it was, even though I grew up in this community, I was about as Ashkenazic as apple pie. So when I was learning from my mother-in-law, Allah Shalom, and I would take my index card and try and write down the recipe, but there was no amount. So I actually took her hand, and when she had the flour, and I measured each thing into cups and spoons, so I could actually get some sort of idea of how to make things. And it was a challenge. I'm doing it.
Darn good too.
I'm doing it. The one thing I'll have to say is Ashkenazic cooking is much quicker and much the Sephardic cooking, I guess women wanted to find things to do with their time or something, because every recipe takes a lot of time, which is enjoyable if you have the time. So, but we all learned it, and we're all doing it.
That's right.
Yep.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Yes.
Ellie Goodbye here.
Hello.
So,
Again, good to see you.
great to see you. So when we arrived in Seattle in 1972, we were not Ashkenazim in our past lives, and we came with a Moroccan cuisine, and we thought it was the best in the world. But the good Lord had us land not very far away from Mrs. Ben Arroya. And need I say more? And need I say more? So up to today, we have what we call leek burgers, prasad, and everything that we learned in Seattle, including having what? No meat on Shabbat midday for lunch? Impossible. They must be Ashkenazim, really. But they're really Sephardim. Okay, good. And so, you know, that it binds you, like you say, but you carry it beyond Seattle and you enjoy it. And we each of the children, Rafi, Sima, myself, Ruthie, we carry that Seattle cuisine forward. And whenever we see a cookbook from Seattle, or I still have the Sephardi Bikur Cholim one, by the way, somewhere, we enjoy it and continue the faith in that regard.
Thank you.
In other regards. So thank you so much. Good to see you guys.
So we will take comments anytime from anybody on any subject almost. So, but let's move on. So a key tool to navigating the Shabbat table is the birkon. Now, a proper discussion of birkonim would take up a whole session all by itself. Its history, going way, way back, up to when cut and paste meant cut and paste, literally. And then the different versions that have emerged with Chazan Ezos's tailored versions of his template, and Larry Adado's version of the Ben Cherico, which is Ashkenazic and Sephardic, depending on what your orientation is. One person's upside down is another person's right side up. And then the tens and probably hundreds of different birkonim. But what's interesting, one thing interesting, is before opening the book to get to the content, the birkon cover with the dedications, bringing memories of happy occasions with family and friends. Oh, who was this? Where were we at? What was the wedding? What that was bar mitzvah? What that anniversary? What's going on? It also serves as a connector between family and across generations. And out of our literally hundreds of birkonim, I just wanted to share with you two for an example. The one is this is Menachem Birkon, before he was doctor, almost 40 years ago. And this is one that we did in Mamash, cut and paste. When we say cut and paste, we mean cut and paste. And then also wanted to share with you the wedding of Menachem and Judy that was built upon, and one of the first ones here, where it says this is compiled and edited Chazan Ezos and its Sephardic traditions, and how we how he has helped us treasure and protect our history. And besides that, there's other heirlooms that come up around the table sometime, and one of them includes kippot, takikas. Now, this takia, I want to share with you because this was made by Mrs. Polakar, Sol Polakar, who was Ralph Maimon's grandmother. We estimate this is probably over 50 years old, and she made it, and we recognize that. And then also, besides the birkonim, you have the kippot, the takiyas that say, oh, this was so-and-so, it's a bar mitzvah or a wedding or whatever. So you have all of those connections with history and family and friends through the takiyas or birkonim or any other kind of artifact. And this would also, anybody who has some thought they want to share with us can do it now or not. And now, at our table, back to the birkon, one of the things we do is invite and encourage our guests. Larry and Sharon shared the different icebreakers that they use for going around the table, how to get people involved in conversation and giving some shape to the discussion. So what we do simply is encourage our guests, without putting them on the spot, to choose either zemer, a song, or give a devar Torah. Right? It's a very close, a very good choice, whatever you choose. And today, you use what you've learned or what you've read. And today, the internet is an indispensable source of all kinds of information that give you good material for devar Torah. So right now, I'd just like to introduce our grandson, AJ, to give a brief devar Torah about giving a devar Torah to represent those who choose to share their devar Torah. AJ, take it away.
Hi, I'm AJ. I use this wonderful book, Short Vort, given to me by my Papa and Nana, which I do not excel at writing my own devar Torahs. So this book has a short 1.5 page devar Torah for every parsha and holiday throughout the year, and can give you anything you need for devar Torah purpose.
When do you plan to use it, AJ?
In Israel next year, if I am required to give a devar Torah at any point.
Yes.
Thank you.
Very good. And if anybody comes to this evening's program with a devar Torah, wow, now that's the time. It's all the audio is yours. I have not done such a thing right now. Okay, so now the next thing, we talked about food and a little bit about customs, and now we want to talk a bit about songs. And yes, so now Jeannie's gonna.
So as I mentioned before, My father's father was a chazan by profession, and he actually wrote some nigunin himself, as well as others from Europe. And so in our family, we sang a lot of Zemirot because this is what they did. So when we sing Zemirot here, we sing both from the Ashkenazic tunes and the Sephardic tunes. And our children learned both. And to this day, we still sing that. So one of the favorites of my father on Friday night was Menucha v'Simcha.
Say a little bit about your father and his patience level.
Yeah, my father wasn't somebody who spent a lot of time talking at the table. You know, when he came home from shul, he said, "Come from shul, mach men kiddush," and that was it. We made the kiddush, and we didn't mess around with a lot of this and that. So Menucha v'Simcha was one of his tunes that he sang on Friday night, and so we will sing a little bit of that tune for you. Menucha v'Simcha or la Yehudim, Yom Shabbaton, Yom Achmadim, Shomra v'Zochra, Ema be'idim, Ki l'shishokal bruim be'yomdim, Shemei shamayim, Eretz yomim, Kol tzvarim gvoim berumim, Tanin ve'yadam chaya be'emim, Ki v'ya Adonai tzorolamim, Hu asher diber le'am segulato, Shamor l'kadsho mibo v'yatzeto, Shabbat kodesh, Yom Chemdato, Kibo Shabbat, El Lekomato, B'mitzvat Shabbat, El Yachlitzach, Kumkra Ela Yachish Le'amtzach, Nishmat Kol Chai V'gam Na'aritzach, Echo B'simcha Ki K'varatzach, B'mishmeh Lechem, Kiddush Rabbah, B'rov Matamin V'ruach Nediva, Yisku leravtu pam mitnagiba v'via doel chayei olam haba.
Thank you. Very nice. And so like that, other examples, and it's made it into our Birkonim. And so now we have quite a rich repertoire also of Sephardic.
By the way, Al, can I jump in real quick?
Please.
I really enjoyed that music that you both just did. Just a quick comment on the I don't know the era from which it came, but today's Ashkenazic nigunim don't have the richness of what you just sang. You can obviously tell that came from a time that was different in character and the different in population, how they view the world, how they viewed the Torah. Right. Really, you can tell just by that music, it's very organized. The words are, the lyrics are
yes,
are meaningful. And what's that, Jeannie?
I said it wasn't.
That's not your usual. Yeah, ich verstehe ein bisschen Yiddish.
Yes. So it wasn't drawn out. It's a quickie.
No, but it doesn't have that. Like modern day music at youth groups or do not reflect this kind of richness. So kol hakavod.
Yeah, and so
needless to say, we sang it in Nusach Ashkenaz.
Yeah,
that's okay. No, that's the rhyme. Better.
That's what the rhyme is, right? It doesn't rhyme otherwise. So but your point, that's a very interesting point.
I want to jump in though.
Yes.
You said it was 99% Sephardic in your home. It sounds like it's pretty much, if not 50-50, it's 60% Sephardic, 40% Ashkenazic. I'm enjoying a lot of these Ashkenazic customs, and I'm feeling not so bad that we have quite a lot of them in our home too.
So it's okay.
So what Jeannie said about her strategic decision to adopt the Sephardic minhag and not confuse the household with minhagim and all that is a true statement. What you just said about the content and the substance of what goes on in our family is also true. So I guess what we're saying is that every family has to discuss where you're going, what you want to do, what you want to have happen. And then it's built on this mutual understanding and this transaction of what do we do, and it all fits in. and try not to have it be tension or conflict, and have it be something that we build something new together. And you're exactly right, Rabbi. And Frank, okay, we'll talk later because my timekeeper is moving us right along.
Oh, go. No, go ahead. That's fine.
Okay, so what for the Sephardic tune, what we wanted to do was to sing Sephardic nigunim, especially in our family, and not like her father was fast. We're gonna take a little bit more time. So I'm gonna sing maybe like one paragraph of one zemer, okay? Just to get an idea. And I think you'll be able to read it if I hold my hand still. Azena motzi sobre dos panes. Azena motzi sobre dos panes. Con manteles muy hermosos en Shabbat, y en ellos todo modo de frutas, לכן יזכו לעולם שכולו שבת. Hoy se cumplió Shabbat. Now, one thing I just learned about this song, when we say Hoy se cumplió Shabbat, I was oh, hoy. You know what the hoy is? I thought it was hoy. But no, it's hoy meaning today. Hoy, H-O-Y. We have a silent H, as Chazan keeps reminding us. It's hoy, it means hoy, means today, a day that is completely Shabbat. And then finally, we want to just remember that we have the Birkat Hamazon, and we sing Yakomi Mozi Bibi Mozi Al Dios Santo Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo Nemos Dios Dara Pan para comer y paños para vestir, anjos muchos de buenos para vivir, Padre el grande que mande al chico a según tenemos de menester, casas y para nuestros hijos, Dios nos oiga y nos responda y nos apiade por su nombre el grande, que somos amigas sin pecado, Hodul Adonai Kito Kileolam Chasdo, Hodul Adonai Kito Kileolam Chasdo, siempre mejor, nunca peor, nunca más manque en la mesa del Creador. Amén.
So I have to tell you, I first heard that tune in camp many, many, many years ago. But I could not find any place where it was written down. So it took me 10 years to learn that because I could never see it written down. And finally, somebody wrote it down, and then I could learn how to sing it.
Yeah. Okay, so now in the last few minutes of talking about what's been happening all of this time, we have to say something about the period that we're entering in. I was talking to my sister in Salem yesterday. We're saying happy half a year mark. And Sekel Dio, the second half of 2020 won't be quite so eventful as the first half has been. But it's changing everything about what we do, how we think, how we react with each other. And we couldn't complete our conversation tonight with talking about how the COVID quarantine has affected our personal celebration of Shabbat in many ways. And tonight, I'd like to just share two customs with you that we've begun. During the week, when we're talking with friends and family, and we celebrate, okay, Julian, we'll send you a text, or send us your contact information, Julian, and we'll send you where you find that text. Thank you. And we'd have alegrias, birthdays or parties or coming a meldado or something, and we say, okay, we're going to invite you to join us to a virtual l'chaim. This Friday night or Shabbat, when we're having our dinner by ourselves and you're with whoever you are, we'll raise our cup and we'll say, l'chaim mazal tov to you on this, or refuah shlema for you on that, and we'll do it. And I have done this for 4 months now, and Baruch Hashem, there's a lot of happy occasions that we've been celebrating, and so we make l'chaim with them. Now, full disclosure, I don't have a drink for every l'chaim that I'm set to make
Thank
because
God.
I don't know that I would be able to make it. So I do combine some different l'chaim. So, but this is an open invitation to any and all of you for us to celebrate a joint l'chaim this Shabbat or next Shabbat as the occasion arises. So that's one example of how we are navigating this COVID quarantine. Another example is Seudah Shlishit. Now, those of you who have come to Sephardic Bikur Cholim know that this is a mainstay experience. The food, the song, the Devar Torah, Echar Lashon, for decades, it is a mainstay of Shabbat at Sephardic Bikur Cholim. And I have to tell you, I miss it very, very much. At the same time, I have to say that we together have discovered this meal. It's a whole new thing. And the menu, the conversation, the singing, the talking, it has become almost a highlight of our Shabbat to have Seudah Shlishit together, just the two of us. It totally surprising, something I didn't expect, and it's something that is happening to us. And one of the things to know about this, believe it or not, for those of you who do go to Bikur Cholim for Seudah Shlishit, we say all 5 stanzas of Ashir La'el. We're breaking with tradition. the handwritten work that we had from Chazan Elul's father, Alav Shalom, he had a beautiful handwriting in Hebrew, and for many, many years we had these little pieces of paper that had that, and for some reason or other he had verses 1, 3, and 5, but we never knew that 2 and 4 existed until we saw it in the CD. Where did they get that from? Who made that up? And so now, so that we say. So what I'd like to do in the next few minutes is to hear from you also about how your Shabbat dynamic and experience is changing. You would like to have it be shared with us, questions, ideas, whatever you have to say.
Anybody?
Or not. All right. So.
You're muted. Do you want to say something? Okay, so you can start talking.
I'd like to say that one of the things that, as we've been going through this from week to week, is the idea of reading the Parsha and the Haftarah. That takes me about an hour. So in other words, I know that everything is pretty much set. If I start around 10 o'clock, then finish the Parsha maybe 10:40, and then by 11 o'clock I will have finished the Haftarah, and then the Musaf goes pretty quick. But and it's somewhat similar to the way it was in Call, but I've reached a point where I haven't kind of pegged very, very specifically certain times. Therefore, I have to get up at a certain time because I have to really start about 9 o'clock in order for me to be able to finish all the Shachrit.
Who gives you this as a on time?
Right, if I wanted to, right, but I think it's helpful in the sense that I have my own internal schedule now that's more rigorous than it would be on a normal Shabbat. If I'm going to go to call, and sometimes I might arrive a little late, sometimes arrive a little early. I mean, I used to sit next to you, Al, so I know sometimes I was there ahead of you, sometimes you were there ahead of me. But now internally, if I'm in the house, then I have this own schedule that I've kind of, it evolved, but now I kind of adhere to it.
Right, and more Humashim come out throughout the morning and even the afternoon. So
yeah, learning a lot.
You're going to have to get up a little earlier this week because it's Chukat Balak.
That's
Oh, double.
And in 2 weeks you got Matot Maseh, so enjoy your doubles. You might have to adjust that schedule so you're ready for lunchtime.
This is the week we finally get, I think, back in sync with
Israel.
Yeah.
The nice thing about saying Shabbat morning tefillah at home is that you're never late.
Depends how you define late.
Right.
Yes, right.
That's true.
Very good. Okay. Anybody else have any ideas they want to share with us? How the rhythm of your night and your day has changed? One thing for us who are not able to go to call, I have to say that the Friday evening program on the Zoom with Rabbi Baron is a very encouraging and very substantial way for us to take ourselves into Shabbat. It's something that is really important and very, very valuable. And we miss you all wherever you are. So, anybody else?
I just would like to second that opinion about enjoying Kabbalat Shabbat.
Yes. Good. Thanks, Jack.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that we'd also echo a lot of what Eugene and what you've said, and Esther have said, and what you have said, that we have found moments over Shabbat which we didn't particularly think much of, like Sudah Shlishit. We had a routine. You go to SBH for Sudah Shlishit. It's something we look forward to. But Sudah Shlishit now is something, it's a more significant meal. We sing over it. We talk a bit differently. And it has a whole family vibe to it. And just like everyone's been saying, before we went back to Kal, Shabbat morning with the girls and doing tefillah with them had its own new experience, a new rhythm to it. And for Father's Day, my kids made a recording of all the Shabbat Zimirot that they'd learned since COVID-19. And they're learning more and more. So definitely things to look up to in these challenging times.
So as we close this discussion, one thing I want to talk about is something I was going to do and I forgot. So I'm going to talk about getting ready for Shabbat for a minute at the end. But when I was growing up, I mean, when I in school, Shabbat was Shabbat. When I came to start a household, I was working, and the rhythm that I got used to for Shabbat was totally antithetical to what the advice is for the husband and the wife of the household to do everything to take yourself, get ready to be taking Shabbat as early as possible on Friday. Everything you do should be focused on getting ready for Shabbat, and you should be done with that and ready to go in. And in my work life, and it carried over into my retired life, if I'm taking a shower more than 10 minutes before candlelighting, I'm taking it too early. because Shabbat's not here yet. Right, and I'm doing all kinds of other things, and one of the things with the COVID it's saying, hey, wait a minute, Al, that's not the way it is. You go con reposo into Shabbat, and then I remember when I was at YU, I used to go to Brooklyn every other Shabbat to the Mazlaton family, and I used to take the train down there from Washington Heights and come in, and I would come in, I would see Joe Mazlaton, Alav Shalom, and his wife Sophie sitting down having coffee. And it's half an hour, 45 minutes before Shabbat. What's going on here? And that image, I sort of mentally blocked it from my mind, or I said, what does that have to do with me? It doesn't, it's not how I do the Shabbat. But that image came back to me recently, and I said, that's how I should aspire to and look at getting ready for Shabbat, so that when we come to Shabbat, so Frank, I can come to your Devar Torah on time and not just time for Mincha. And I'm ready to come to get ready for Shabbat con reposo so that we can enjoy it in all of the fullness that we are all talking about. And I just want to say thank you all for coming with us, being on this trip. And we look forward to having a meaningful this event, that you help us figure out how this event is more meaningful for more people. And, oh yeah, sometime sooner rather than later, by the way, let's join each other physically for Shabbat and others always for joyous occasions.
Amen.
Shabbat Shalom, saluto para todos.